Mike in Fairfax, Virginia, says you disagree with me that the left is blaming the banks but not the politicians. Do I have that right?
Well, what I think is it's an oversimplification to lay 100% of the guilt at the banks. To me, there's three actors in this saga. There's the banks that enabled the politicians through excessive lending, the politicians who borrowed more than they could ever pay, and the people who elected the politicians, and they were awfully happy when they got 2 years of unemployment, 30-hour work weeks, free health care, free this, free that. And now the banks are saying, hey, that wasn't a gift. You got to pay that back. And the whole thing's coming apart. Yeah. And in addition to that, over the last decade, those banks have refinanced that debt probably at least 5 times that I'm aware of. So they've made an act of good faith to work with the governments, and the governments have demonstrated that they can't manage their budgets to ever repay the debt.
No, not true. Not true. The governments, first of all, I don't disagree with the notion that the politicians, particularly in Greece, bear a large chunk of the blame, because the politicians in Greece conspired with Goldman Sachs, and Matt Taibbi laid this out brilliantly in a piece for Rolling Stone that's still on their website. You can easily Google the thing down. The politicians of Greece conspired with Goldman Sachs to hide their debt, so they got below that debt is no greater than 3% of GDP level, so that they qualified for entry into the European Union. And Goldman Sachs took a bunch of that debt and turned it into an asset magically, right? And those politicians should be in jail, just like the people at Goldman Sachs should be in jail, or if the Greeks were going to go that route, or there should be some penalty to them. I agree with you on that.
I just think it's not 100% guilt at the bank's feet. I would put 25% at the banks for enabling the governments to overspend, 50% on the politicians.
But see, I would tell you the governments are not overspending, Mike. That's the fundamental fallacy of what you're saying.
Governments don't spend money.
No. Here's the thing. When times are good in the business, this is the nature of capitalism, and this is not a Marxist perspective. This is just Econ 101. The nature of capitalism is that there is a business cycle. There is a natural business cycle. There have been all these different efforts to quantify it and identify it, the Kondracki wave, and all these different wave theories, and nobody's really nailed it down. And there's all these different competing theories, and there are, of course, things that vary the business cycle, like price shocks, bad weather creating shortages of necessary commodities like food, or oil shortages, strategic commodities, whatever. All these things influence the business cycle. But the reality is that in a capitalist economy, you're going to have some really good years and you're going to have some really bad years. And so, and the bad years are particularly dangerous for democratic governments, for any kind of government, in a capitalist economy, because in a bad year, if a certain threshold of people get laid off and go from being producers of goods and services and producers of tax money that goes to help fund the commons and the government, to consumers of goods and services and consumers of tax money, then the government and the government does not step in and say, we will help you through this tough time. In other words, here's an unemployment check for you, and we will provide you with your health insurance. If the government fails to do that, then what happens is that recession gets twice as deep, because those people don't have any money in their pocket to spend, and it is spending which is the principal driver of demand, which is what drives economies. And this is why, from the founding of this republic, just to use America as an example, from 1787 until 1935, we never went more than 15 years without a major national stock market crash and bank panic. Never more than 15 years. That was considered the business cycle. It was a 15-year cycle.
Yep.
It was,
I agree with you.
Okay, so what FDR did was he said, we're going to even out the business cycle. We're going to have, when times are good, we're going to collect a lot of taxes. We're going to have a top tax rate of 91%. And, people are only going to pay it if they're making piles of money, right? So when times are good, we're going to fill the government coffers up. And when times are bad, when the business cycle collapses, we're going to spend that money back out into the economy through unemployment insurance and Social Security pensions and food stamps and all these kind of things. And that's going to even out the business cycle. And for the first time in the history of our nation, we went from 1935 until 2008 without a single banking panic. And it was because of that stabilizer. Now, shift that to Europe. Greece has a stabilizer built into their system, just like we do, unemployment insurance. But Greece signed this stupid agreement with the European Union that says that if their national debt goes over 3%, they've got to start selling off their streets. They've got to stop having those stabilizers. They've got to say no to their unemployed people. If you're unemployed more than a year, you don't have health insurance anymore. This has nothing to do with generous benefits. This is stabilizers. This is stuff to protect not just people, but to protect capitalism. If their debt goes over 3%, they can't borrow anymore. They can't do it. They've got to cut to the bone. And what that does is it causes capitalism to do what capitalism does, which is when it goes into a downward spiral. If there's nothing to catch that spiral, to stop that spiral, it keeps going deeper. And that's why you've got 33% unemployment in Greece right now. It's why you got 26% unemployment in Spain right now. It's why Italy is looking at 19% unemployment, because the stabilizing systems have been stopped by this idiotic agreement with the European Union that if you're going to use the euro, your debt to GDP ratio can't exceed 3% in any one year, no matter how bad the recession of that year is. And that's going to kill the euro and the European economy. And it's got nothing to do with being too generous or socialism or any of that nonsense.
Well, real quick, if you think that Goldman should be in jail for what they did to call Greek debt an asset, then Bernanke should be the first one standing trial, because right now he holds something like $2 trillion of our own debt. That's monetizing the debt. You guys always say Social Security holds assets, but all they hold is debt. That's no different than what they did in Greece. And then the third point I would make is Operation Twist. All this Operation Twist is doing is basically refinancing the mortgage. And there's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to finance your long-term debt at 1.5%.
I agree.
Rates will go up.
I agree, Mike.
And the cost to service the American debt is going to shoot through the roof, and you're going to have to cut programs.
I don't disagree with you at all, Mike. You're going to have to cut programs, or you're going to have to raise taxes. If you go back and you look at how America worked before the Reagan tax cuts, when he took it down from 74% down, things worked just fine. Thank you very, very much. In fact, we were prosperous.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
In fact, before Reagan cut taxes on the rich and on corporations and started all these corporate loopholes, we had 4 consecutive decades of more than 3.2% GDP growth, the first time in history.